Hello, welcome to the Beyond the Questions podcast, because every great conversation starts with a question. We're having real conversations about life with life coaches, and we are anticipating another great episode. So get ready and let's get started.
Welcome to Beyond the Questions, where real coaches come together for authentic conversations. I'm Kellie Grutko, founder of Purposeful Pivot, a coaching and retreat business for midlife women. And my mission as a transition coach is to help accomplished women experiencing corporate burnout find their what's next. And before we dive into today's theme, which is finding rest in the rush, I'd love for each of the coaches today to introduce themselves and share their missions. So why don't we start? TQ, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. My name is Twan, or TQ, as you just heard Kellie say. I'm a life coach with TQ Coaching Solutions, and I love helping people get unstuck when they have goals that they're trying to get after, whether you're an entrepreneur, creator, innovator, or just trying to figure something out in life. I'd love to walk with people through that. So that's what I'm doing. And I also play music a little bit too, in case you look it up and you go, I thought this guy was a life coach, and you see me playing guitar. That may happen as well. About you, Jason?
I can promise you the one thing you'll never see if you look me up is me playing guitar or singing. So, So my name is Jason Roton with Jason Roton Coaching. So I want to help people unleash their potential, ignite their passion, and awaken their purpose. So I am a life and executive coach. Last week, officially certified life and executive coach through the ICF.
Yay.
And I'm also exploring what it looks like to use coaching to help people explore their emotional intelligence, and especially how that impacts your business and small businesses in particular. What about you, Ericka?
Yeah, so I chose to become a life coach through some experience through life, and my mission is to support women who have experienced trauma by coaching and helping them through grief, healing, relationship challenges, and hopefully some personal growth, and to provide a safe space for them to walk through all of these challenges. Some of these women might not have security or no safety, not a lot of trust, and possibly an unsupportive community, and potentially financial challenges as well. So just as a woman who has gone through this kind of trauma, I chose to educate myself and get my coaching certification to be able to walk alongside of other women that are also going through this.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. So today we're diving into something that shows up for nearly all high achievers or high performers, and that's finding rest in the rush of either the holiday season that we're coming up into or any time of the year, basically. So I think sometimes we magnify expectations and obligations, and our emotions get the best of us. So today we're talking about kind of reclaiming that energy, honoring our limits, and navigating life's changes, and be a little bit more grounded. So let's start with the heart of the topic today, which is rest. So not the kind that we schedule for someday, but the kind we probably need right now. So I'm going to just throw out to the coaches, if anyone wants to take this one. Why do you think rest feels just impossible for high achievers?
I do think in our society and our culture, and I can only speak specifically for like American culture, doesn't really teach us how to rest in our regular everyday schedules. We're constantly feeling it. We're late to the next thing that we already need to be at. And when we're at that, our mind is already on the next thing that we need to do, whether that is through business in life or even a busy mom who is taking her kids to all the extracurricular activities. So it's like, it's not even fathomable because we haven't learned how to put rest into our schedules.
Yeah, that's really true. And, Kellie, you said high achievers. I feel like, man, people are just surviving. Anybody just trying to live can find themselves in this busy, rust, burnout, because we just have these responsibilities, like, whatever your roles are, parent, son, daughter, friend, worker, you name it, and you start listing those things up, and then life comes at you. you know, you got crazy things going on in your home and such, you know, and so you're like, okay, and I got to deal with that too. And who knows what else? Now, we're not even talking about what we're thinking about internally, you know, and so you start adding that all up, especially you're just trying to get it all done. And then days go by, weeks go by, months go by, and you find out, man, I haven't stopped to take a breath, you know? And so, I mean, that's kind of what I've seen, and I would say even experience at times.
Yeah, to add to what you guys both said, I think we don't know how to rest. And we live in a completely distracted society. So that little magic box that we all keep in our pocket, I think even when we get a moment to like actually sit or be quiet and rest, we're so worried about what's happening there. I need to check a social media feed. I need to check an email. I need to check my calendar. I want to see what my friend's doing. I just got a text message. Like that thing is constantly alerting us to the fact that there's something else to do. And so for me, a huge part of figuring out how I rest is figuring out how I distance myself from my phone. And when I don't rest.
I was going to say the exact same thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even watch like TV and a commercial comes on. I'm immediately on my phone. Like it just can't stop sometimes because like you said, it just comes at you and you have to grab it and that little alert is there. And it's just, I think it prevents people from really just being present. So I totally agree with that, Jason. So what do you think, like for yourself, for your clients, what do you think triggers burnout the most? Do you think it's always being, on? Do you think it's people easily being able to get a hold of you at all hours? What do you think kind of triggers that burnout for people?
I mean, I think if I was going to summarize it into one thing, I think it's a lack of boundaries. We're not good as people at putting up things that slow us down or keep us in line. I like to run without rules. My kind of tagline is rules are meant to be broken. And so that's great until there's never a break. And so what are the disciplines that we have to build into our lives to get away from our phone, to create rest, to say, I'm not going to work during these hours? But yeah, I think we lack boundaries. We lack boundaries in our relationships, in our work environment, with our technology.
Yeah, it really is a lack of boundaries. And what it's reminding me of is so I was a nurse for 10 years, and as nurses, we get alarm fatigue, and it's that constant alarms going off all of the time. And of course, there are ways to work around it while like you said, Kelly, like all of these dings are going off. And then Jason, with knowing, like, how do we put boundaries in place so that that's not always going off on our phone, or we don't have it always going off on our watch? Or so what are the boundaries to protect ourselves through this so we can have those moments of rest? Like for me, it's, like I leave everything. I do take my phone, but I put it on do not disturb, and I go out and I ride my horse. But, I'm by myself and it's quiet. So putting in those boundaries, like, makes sense. It's whatever the trigger is. I really liked how you said that it's a lack of boundaries.
There's a phrase you don't hear every day. I turn off my notifications and go ride my horse. I love that.
That is awesome.
That's great.
I feel like we need a new graphic for the podcast. It should be TQ's body sitting on a horse, or Ericka's body sitting on a horse with TQ's head playing a guitar.
Oh my gosh.
Perfect.
That will draw them in. They'll know exactly what we're talking about then. It's definitely beyond questions at that point, for sure.
That's a lot of confusing questions.
Yeah.
Oh, man. These boundaries are an issue. I think sometimes, we're talking about boundaries for external things. I think sometimes this... the burnout and the lack of rest comes because I've connected so much of who I am to what I do, And so if I'm achieving and going after things, and I say achieving, I'm taking the role that I'm in. Let's say, dad, husband, as I said before. But if it's if who I am is dependent on how much or how well I do at that, depending on how I think about it or how others view it, then the next thing you know, I am trying to be better me by doing more. And the next thing you know, I've done so much that I've even lost myself and I've exhausted myself to not be able to do any of those roles or to fit any of that stuff, you know? And so the boundary of, you know, what I do as to who I am. I mean, I think that's a big one because I think it's one of the things that keeps me going to the next thing or trying to accomplish whatever the list of things that I feel need to occur. You know?
And I think too, sometimes you put on, you know, what people expect you. Like there's the work Kellie and there's the home Kellie and there's the friend Kellie, and you just keep doing what you think people expect from you. And I mean, doing that and not being just authentic Kellie in every environment, you know, would be exhausting, and that would create burnout. So I think you're right on there, TQ, that it's kind of internally you have to look at it too. Otherwise you exhaust yourself. For sure. Yeah.
But that idea of who I am being in what I do, some of that has benefit, right? It's not all bad to invest who you are in what you're doing. I think, and so it becomes a razor thin line of be versus do. And I would say in America, we're really bad at just being. We're really good at doing. But like, think about the last time, maybe you guys are better at this than me, so I'll just admit my deficiency here. But think about the last time you sat in an hour of like silence or quiet to just be. You weren't studying for anything. You weren't trying to accomplish something. You were just being. I don't think we do that very often. Hypothesis anyway.
For sure. You find those people who do that, you let me know who they are.
I was going to say an hour. Gosh, I can't even do that for 5 minutes.
But you're right. You know, we don't find ourselves just stopping and being still. Matter of fact, I think we feel like if we do that, then we're missing out. You're not like gaining. We're not like recharging. We're like, no, if I stop here, then I'm not getting this list done. And then what? You know, who am I? What am I letting down? You know? Yeah.
So, and I'm so glad we came into boundaries, because that's exactly where I wanted to go next and try to figure out, you know, how do we protect our boundaries? And are there, you know, as coaches, sometimes you have to look at clients and help them reclaim either their yes or their no during busy times. And they have to be able to say no to things that aren't important and, you know, be able to say yes to the things that are prioritized. So are there, you know, instances that you see where you have to help people through their yeses and their nos so that they can put those boundaries on? Because if you don't, you know, then you're just going to get overwhelmed.
Kellie, I actually want to take that question and ask it specifically to Ericka, because I'm amazed when you said, "Hey, I want to relax. I go ride a horse." That doesn't seem like if I want to relax, I could take a walk. I'm going to put my tennis shoes on and walk out the door, and I'm walking. Right? It's a 30-second process. In my mind, riding a horse is a process to get there and then time to actually ride. So how do you create that? How have you created that boundary in your life to be able to do something like that I think is restful?
Well, that for me specifically, creating that, right? Like I know that is my resting place. Yes, it might take work. And yes, I am not doing other things. While then in the long run, I know I'm more capable of doing those things because I took that break. And in that, like, kind of framing it of the like yes or no during those busy times, it is creating these spaces for myself, right? Like I'm going to create that space for myself, and I have to practice creating that space. So whether that be practicing, so we can like scale it down, right? Somebody that's not very good at saying no or is uncomfortable, like no is a complete answer. How do we practice in a safe space, creating that simple answer, and then you can practice it bigger?
You know, and I think too, when you I love the word practice, because sometimes it does take practice to say no. I mean, just yesterday, I was asked to do a project with someone, and I really wanted to do it, but I just knew deep down in my heart, I just didn't have the bandwidth to do it because I was doing too many things at one time. So I had to decline getting involved, and it was just creating such anxiety within me to just say no. But then after I did, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I did, because I could not have done that properly if I had agreed to do it. So I think sometimes you have to practice saying no. But if you say no to the right things, you end up in a better place because you are looking out for yourself and your time and your value and just what you prioritize. So I'm glad you said practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With that practice, I'm even going, how do you practice resting? Like you said, Ericka, you said, I know that that's a place I find rest when you're talking about, and so there was such a confidence in that. Like, I'm like, oh, she's done that a bit. And there's something that's come from that, right? I know that when I take a vacation, and I typically, my vacation is home. Okay. My home where I grew up, high school, Fort Walton Beach, Florida. It is a fabulous place to be from, and you should all go visit. Okay.
Are you paying?
Road trip?
No.
Okay.
But
Let's go to Florida. I'm ready. Again.
I mean, I'll let you know where we're going, and maybe we can tag together. Okay.
Right, we'll see how it goes.
We'll do a podcast live from there.
There you go. That would be a great place to do it.
Yeah.
But when I go home, and I'm seeing family, I'm seeing my dad who's in one spot close by. I'm seeing my mom who's in one spot close by. I am trying to make sure that the kids all have stuff to do and when they're not super bored. I find myself going to my mom's house to take care of some things. So she lives by herself. And I don't live close. So when I go there, right. And so I know in my mind, though most people go, vacation, I'm going to be so relaxed. When I do that, I go, no, I'm going to go see family. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I am knowing going in that, yes, there's going to be some fun times, but this is not what I would call my resting place. I've not done this super consistently, but I have begun to, in the mornings, go for a walk. It's about 20 minutes. I walk, I pray, I kind of let stuff kind of go. Like my mind starts to jump to things and I'm just kind of chunking that to the heaven, right? And in that, I find that there's this reset that occurs. And I can kind of go, okay, I can get back and start jumping on the list of things to do again, but I don't have it feels like it gets lighter even though the list hasn't changed. You know what I'm saying? And I think there's something that has occurred in my heart and my mind when I take that time to do that walk, And so, and I found that I need it, because if I don't, I am just spinning, just all the things and do this and that and the other. And by the end of the day, I'm just rattled,
Totally. I do the same thing. I get up, I don't walk, I get up and I go exercise. And if I don't, people think, oh, you exercise all the time. And I'm like, well, yeah, because it's mostly for my mental clarity. It's more because if I don't do that, the rest of my day is just off. So that's kind of my place too. I actually downloaded an app, like a meditation app, to try to learn how to meditate, because everyone, speaks so highly of it and I could never do it. So I downloaded an app and I'm like, every morning I'm going to do this. I got to tell you, I need more practice thinking of that word, because I can't get it. I have such trouble sitting there for 5 minutes. Like I can't even get up to the 10-minute mark. So I need more practice, but I think maybe we all have to do it in different ways. Maybe is my message.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is so true, Kelly. And I think it's one of the things you ask how we help our clients. I think one of the interesting things is I can't tell anybody else how to rest. Like there are things that I do to rest, or if I were Ericka, it's not like I can be like, hey, just go buy a horse and ride it. It'll be restful, right? Like that's how Ericka rests. TQ rests with a walk. You rest with exercise. Like each of us finds that thing that is the way we rest. I too, I get a lot of emotional health out of working out. I was part of a kickboxing gym for about a year. And I can tell you, there were days I went to that kickboxing gym and there were faces on that bag that I was punching and kicking because it just
doesn't sound restful.
It's not. But in the end, you just come away and you're like, that stress is gone, that I have clarity about what I need to do and where I need to go. I sat in some of my most intense meetings with like just pure calm because of that. But there are other things, like there are lots of pieces that play to that. I think the important thing is for people who are listening is, where do you find rest? Is it in music? Is it on the back of a horse? Is it on a bike? Is it in a hike? Is it reading a book? What is that thing that restores you and you walk away from and you go, and whatever that is, I think that's where we need to think about how do we build more of that time into our schedule for those activities along the way.
And I think too, when life gets chaotic, you tend to pull back from those things because you don't have time for them. And I think that's when you need to lean in more because you're going to need that kind of mental clarity and rest to handle those crazy days. And I know it's hard to do. It's easier said than done, but I think people really need to lean into those exercises or walks or whatever, works for them right when they're busiest. For sure. So are there signs that you see maybe from people that you know that you can tell they're kind of pushing back or they're pushing past that healthy limit and that maybe, they try to make you think everything's fine on the outside, but you can just tell, there's something there. And it's like, how do you kind of break through to that person to say, look, you're pushing past your healthy limit. You need to kind of regroup. Because I think people do that often too, that they just push everything down and try to act like everything's fine.
I think when I'm noticing that, I've been listening to who they want to be, right? And then what they're telling me or what they're exposing. I try to find out, hey, what are your goals? Where are you headed? What in your mind is going to really bring life, right? And when I know that and they feel like, yeah, this is what life would really look like for me. And then I find that what they're doing is incongruent with that. Then I try to say, hey, how you're living now, does this fit? And say, okay, if there are things here that doesn't fit with what's over here, what are those things? Or how can you protect that? How can you, pull away from that or take some of those things out to kind of get back to what you were trying to be,
And some people do things because it's just what they've always done, right? Even if it drains them, they've always done it. So they have a tough time at breaking out of that. And I think sometimes people need help to kind of take those blinders off and help them see that just because you used to do it that way doesn't mean it works for you anymore.
Well, and Kelly, I think that's so true into the season we're walking into. Like here we are headed into Thanksgiving, and Christmas is going to be fast on its heels. And we're like, well, I have to do this because we've done it for the last 25 years and we hate it every time, but we just have to keep doing it. Or it adds more stress to us every time we do it. Like, what would it look like to say, does that actually align to what I value? Like if I look at this season or my life in general, are the things I'm spending my time doing lining up to the things I tell everybody I value? And if not, why are we still doing them? Right? Like, I mean, especially if it's just like, well, it's tradition. Okay. Do you really want to keep that tradition? Like, how important is that tradition to you? So yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for looking at, we always do this.
Yeah.
And what's left behind? When you turn around and you look backwards, what's in your wake of we've always done this? How many family arguments or disappointments or frustrations inside of ourselves live in that we've always done it this way?
I'm curious if anyone here wants to share, is there a time where you personally said no to something and it reshaped kind of how you moved through life, or it reshaped, whatever you were dealing with at the time?
Well, I think because it's kind of a hard question, right? Like, It's a vulnerable question. And I'll go for the big no here in my life to just share some of the things, which was saying no to, no longer being a doormat. And that is when I left my soon to be ex-husband. And that wasn't a light decision. While yes, it has completely reshaped my life. While it was a great no, I was not in a healthy place. And even thinking about some of these things that we're talking about, like I was not functioning as a normal-ish, I don't really like that word, but I wasn't functioning as a human being in general. And finally saying that no, and I remember when I drove down that driveway, just this relief coming off of me because I knew that was the correct thing to do and the correct no to say. And it reshapes everything. It really does. And I'm still moving through it and I'm still learning and they're still hard. While if I look back at, that woman that said no, first of all, I'm going to give her a hug. Tell her, you can do it. And then I'm going to be like, you will get off the floor. You will get out. It is a hard no to say, yet it's the no that needs to be said.
Ericka, thank you for that vulnerability. That's a big no. And I can't imagine the implications of that one. Nothing even close to follow that with. But Kellie, when you asked that question, I thought about this last year, and I took a job that was at a nonprofit organization that I love and respect, and I thought this is going to be the job that pays the bills. It's going to be great, and it did. It paid the bills. Things were going really well, but other things were suffering. I had almost no time to do what I love as far as coaching goes. I was having to reschedule calls or change things around. I think I realized I was at my limit when my in-laws came to visit, and we sat down to watch a family movie at 8:00, and I think I was snoring by 8:05. And as long as I was still moving, I was fine. But every time I sat down, I fell asleep. And just realizing that job, while it was great, and that organization, while it was amazing, this was not the thing I was supposed to be doing. This was not the direction I wanted to go. And so I had to say no. And I think it's hard because we don't see, I think this is where a good community comes in, is we don't always see the impact or the implications of all the yeses. But I'm thankful for my wife who was like, hey, we need to talk about this. We need to figure this out. And so who are those voices in our lives that we allow to get close enough to say, we need to slow down, or I'm afraid of what the implications are going to be?
Yeah, that's true. I think my no goes back to one of the places that I worked. I've worked in several different churches, and where we're headed was just going two different ways. And at least it's our philosophy of how to go about doing this thing called ministry. And I had to say no to that. I had to pull away from that, which was very hard. And there was no backup, there was no hip pocket thing that I had, well, I just go do this thing, or I'm going to this other church, or whatever the case may be. There was just a matter of going, man, this is not working out. I am running ragged. I am, I feel like I'm in such conflict in where we're headed that it was very wearisome, and it, producing a lot of exhaustion and stress. And so there came a point where mutually agreed with my leadership, or my bosses, for lack of a better term, that it is best to say no to what I'm doing here and figure something else out, because not only were we not on the same page, but it just wasn't good for my heart and my spirit, and I needed to find that new direction to go in. So I guess that was a boundary but I don't know that I've ever thought of it in that way until we kind of start talking about this topic. I'm not even sure I would have called it burnout, but it was definitely, there was such a release of stress that I'd been in for a while, that I didn't realize, man, there was a lot that I was carrying, and to be able to do something else was good. And so now there were other things that came up in the new area, but that's another topic. But there was the right thing at that moment, though it was extremely difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you guys, mine's job career related as well. I said no to, the corporate life I was in for over 30 years. And the burnout built up for me, and you just kept pushing it down. You think, oh, I just need a vacation, or I just need to get away. And you don't realize it. I think you really don't realize some of these things until you're in it, like until you're out of it. When you're going through it, like it must have gone on for me for years. Like you said, TQ, I was just carrying it and I got used to the load. And then it wasn't until I was willing to say, this just isn't what I want to do anymore. I left same like you. I left without a plan, but I just couldn't do it anymore. Like I loved where I worked. I loved the people. I loved everything. It was just inside of me. It just was no longer my vision for my life. So it would have been easier, I think, if I left because I just hated it. But so it was much harder because I did like it for a while, but then you just I got burnt out and left. So I know that was my no. And I didn't realize it was that big of a no until I look back now, and it completely changed my life. So, yeah, I think we all kind of go through these transitions, whether it's career or relationships or, aging parents or kids leaving the home, but we all go through whatever transitions, we go through. And, it leaves us with decisions, right? And so you just hopefully make the right one and hold to your boundaries and your values and make the right ones.
I was just going to say, I think that just in listening to everyone's stories here too, from the outside, right? It might have looked okay, except Jason, maybe your wife knew, that things weren't going on, but it's like from the outside, everything might look okay. Like this, like somebody's looking in, oh yeah, their life is fine. But what is that internal conflict, and it going back to those values and beliefs that we have, and basing our decisions, on that. Like you said, like you didn't realize until you finally said that no, that you looked back and saw like, wow, like this, I might not have this plan going forward, but this isn't the plan for me anymore. While just somebody might looking in, and that's your own internal dialogue, right? And so it's like recognizing these things within ourselves and then basing the decisions, whether it's a no or a yes off of that. And then, we might need help through those kind of sticky times.
And I guess is there like a mindset shift that you think helps people move through change more easily? Because I think it all starts with your mindset, right? Like you have to be willing to take a risk and say no. Because the easy way is just to stay in whatever you're in, So I think you really need to kind of, like you said, Ericka, look internally. It starts internally. And maybe there's a mind shift or a mindset shift to kind of get you past the fear and make that choice. Is there something that you do or you have clients do that helps kind of shift that mindset?
I think first it's as they're working through something that they want to have a change, right? Whether they know what that change is or not, that there wants to be a change. And then holding on to that hope that change can happen, right? It doesn't have to be this way. Why I don't have to have these family traditions where everyone is arguing all the time just because of this. So how do we change it? How do we shift it and be bold and speak up to change it, and holding on, to that hope that it can change and look differently than it has in the past.
And I think letting go of some guilt too, right? There's always, when you make a big decision, sometimes just guilt sets in, like, oh my gosh, I feel guilty. I'm doing something for myself, or, I'm doing something and it might affect other people in my life. And I think you have to be willing to give up that guilt too, that holds you back. Because I think that's a big one for people.
Yeah, the guilt and shame is things that have to be worked through. And while, of course, we are 4 coaches here, and so I see Jason's mind like stirring with this question. So, Jason, you're gonna have to speak up here and tell us what's going through your mind.
I think what's going through my mind is we started with this idea of rest,
Mm-hmm.
and we've kind of shifted into how do we make change, but I feel like rest got left a little bit.
Mhm.
And so I'm trying to figure out, how do we come back to that in the midst of this? How do I find rest? I wonder if what makes change hard is because we're making decisions in such split second time without really thinking it through, because we don't take time to rest, because we're always moving, because we're on the edge of burnout. And then it's like, I've got to change. I got to make the decision. And I can't, because I haven't slowed down. So one of the things, we attend a church, and my pastor will often walk up to me and he'll say, I hope you have a slow morning. And I think he knows that I don't have very many slow mornings. But it's a reminder now that he's said enough times to me that I actually think about pace of which I'm making decisions, and really at which I'm living life, and how am I finding rest in the middle of that? I don't think rest has to be a 4-hour thing, but it can be, my son just finished health class as a freshman in high school, and the best power naps are 20 to 35 minutes.
For sure.
And I was like, sweet.
Sign me up.
Let's take a power, what if we began to incorporate real rest into our rhythms of life? I wonder how much easier it would be to say intentional no's and to make progress and intentional change. So that's what was in my mind, Ericka. I don't know if I articulated that clearly or not, but that's what I was trying to figure out, is how to say that.
Yeah. No, I think that's good.
Yeah.
We are often, I won't talk for everybody. I have often made decisions when I was so weary, right? So weary that I couldn't think straight. I couldn't get I couldn't take into account my emotions, logic, who it influences, right? And so, because I wasn't rested enough, and I would find myself maybe prolonging something that I shouldn't, or stepping into something that I shouldn't. Either way can be bad, but it's just like I'm most clear on a day in that morning after a decent night's rest, and I've taken a minute, taken my walk, and there's such relief and clarity to be able to do the things that are next. And so I think that is how that rest really affects those yeses and nos and what we're doing with our life, or what I'm doing with my life. I'll get back to talking about myself.
Yeah, I think it comes back to, the simple, steady practices, like those behaviors that help us reconnect with what matters most. So we're all talking about our no's or big decisions, but it does come back to being prepared. So when there is a big decision that is in front of you, you always know how to kind of get back to yourself and connect with what's important, so that you can take the time to make those decisions. And I mean, I'm sure there's other weekly practices or daily practices people do other than, ones that we've named, that really help to kind of get themselves into space, so that when a big decision arises, that they're already prepared for it. Because I think it all goes back to where you are, just, with your rest and your mental clarity and how you approach life. So I think a lot of times it comes down to the small things and making sure you're just connected to yourself, so you're ready at the right time. But I think, we're getting closer to the end. So I want just to wrap up a little bit. I'd like, if you don't mind, each of you to share maybe a piece of advice or a reminder, something you wish people listening knew, about maybe some recommendations on how they don't lose themselves in the rush, and what they can do to make sure that they're always present. I know we talked about a few here, but is there one thing you want to leave people with today?
I would say avoid the comparison trap. I think so often we look at either how much someone else is doing and how little we feel like we're doing in comparison, and then we push ourselves for more. Or we just keep trying to keep up with the next person. And then, back to the phone thing that I started with, I'll say, I think we love to take everybody else's highlight reel and compare it to our everyday life. And it's not real. Like, you may have a really high capacity to get a lot done, and that's fantastic. In the midst of all that, where do you find rest? Or if you're someone who doesn't have that same capacity, my guess is your work and the things you do are just as important and you're just as intentional about it, but you can be moving slower and still not resting. And so I think the biggest thing is figure out what rest means for you and how to work that into your daily rhythm, and stop looking at what everybody else is doing and try to say, well, they do this, so I have to do that. It's just going to wear you out.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Relentlessly pursue rest. Getting rest takes effort, which sounds like an oxymoron, but it really, like, if I don't begin the week or the day and schedule it in, it will not happen. Guaranteed. Because there are too many things calling to my name, saying, Twan, come do this. TQ, let's have this talk. And the next thing I know, the whole day's gone. I've gotten just a couple hours of sleep because I've let too many things go on. And then the next day begins. And it just keeps continuing until the next thing you know, I am at my wit's end and I don't know what end is up.
Yeah. And we've kind of said this, but haven't put the word on it. Well, it's self-care, right? A lot of the people, and even myself, still in, different times of survival mode, which that is a whole other conversation for itself. It's very hard to find the rest when you're in survival mode. And so picking a little bit of self-care, whether that be journaling, taking a walk, taking a bath, and, making sure your phone isn't in there, just a small self-care thing that, a person can do to find that little bit of resting space for themselves.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here and being so honest and generous with your perspectives. If you're listening, I hope you walk away with permission to slow down, to choose differently, and protect the parts of your life that matter the most. So join us next time as we continue our deep conversations, and oftentimes funny and crazy. But we hope, you'll honor yourself and what it means to grow and evolve and live with purpose. So until next time, thank you all for being here.
Kelly, I don't want to ruin your beautiful ending, but one resource I would recommend for people if they're looking for something, if they're readers or want something to read, John Mark Comer wrote an incredible book called The Relentless Pursuit of Hurry. And it is a fantastic resource if you're looking for something to read that goes along with this. I'm sorry, Kelly, I didn't want to interrupt.
That's beautiful. I love it. Thank you.
Good.
Awesome.
And the holidays are coming. You can still take rest there.
Yeah.
I would say.
And, hopefully you have heard this. While if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Mm-hmm.
Good words.
Yep. All right. We'll hopefully you'll stick with us and join us next time. So thanks everybody for being here. Appreciate it.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beyond the Questions. Be sure to subscribe so that you can stay up to date concerning future episodes. And if you would like to connect with any of the hosts on Beyond the Questions, their contact info is linked in the description below. Thanks for stopping by, and we will see you on the next episode of Beyond the Questions.